many states and many banks offer a doctor loan, which is the decreased, very small interest compared that if you didn't have it. And that goes away at year number 10 of graduating from residency. So if
Oh,
you
wow.
want to buy a house and you want to invest, you want to do it within those 10 years and think about, like, it might be a hard investment. You might be tight for a little bit. But if you're renting during that time, you're wasting time and you're wasting money. That money is not going to anywhere. Whether if you're like doing it, like paying your mortgage, you're investing in your future, and in your family's future.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Time is one of the biggest challenges that a lot of us struggle with. Today, we're going to be in and out really quick because time is of the essence. Today's guest is serving as the Division and System Chief for Trauma and Acute Care Surgery. Everybody, please welcome Dr. Paula Ferrada to the show. All right, Paula, here we are. Welcome to the show. It's a beautiful day here, and we're not going to have any small talk today. We're just going to get down to the nuts and bolts, learn a little bit about you and your investing path so far, so that way we can share your experience with the listeners out there. So first of all, welcome. Tell the listeners just a little bit about who Paula is, where you're at in your medical career right now.
Yeah, so I am a professor of medical education for the University of Virginia, and I'm the Division System Chief of Trauma and Acute Care Surgery for Innova Health. I came to the United States. I am from Colombia originally, came to the United States and did internship at the University of Miami. Then I went to the Cathedral of Deaconess in Boston and finished surgical residency. Then I went to the University of Pittsburgh to do a fellowship in surgical critical care. Then I went to shock trauma and became their first acute care surgery fellow. And I was at Virginia Commonwealth University of DCU for 11 years, where I directed the unit, was part of the board, and did a couple of other things and became professor of surgery. And then I joined Innova in this leadership role 3 years ago, and we keep growing strong, mentoring, helping, and developing trauma systems.
Wow. So Innova, and that's in the Richmond area, is that correct?
Innova is a 5-hospital healthcare system in Northern Virginia. We serve a population of 3.2 million people. The emergency room of Innova Fairfax, which is our main hospital for the campus, is the third busiest emergency room of the country. We have a blood bank that we own, which is like the second largest in the country. And we also have, it's a 5-hospital system with 3 hospitals that are trauma centers.
Wow. So thank you as a user of those trauma systems. Unfortunately, it is means so much to us to have that professional to calm down, assess the situations, and keep everybody as safe as possible, as healthy as possible. So thank you for what you do, controlling the chaos in those scenarios.
Thank you.
All right. So talking about chaos, let's talk a little bit about investing chaos. Where are you? So you've got so much going on, a trauma surgeon, a professor, all of this stuff. Massive trauma unit. Where do you find time to invest or learn about investing?
Well, so I think for all physicians, especially surgeons out there, and especially women physicians, like I believe that nobody teaches you that when you're in medical school. Nobody teaches you that in residency, and we keep and some of us, because of the way that the careers, we go into like large amount of debt to be able to become physicians, and then we spend a lot of time paying their debt. And you keep delaying, right? So you're not gonna save now because you're a resident and you're poor, and then you don't save at the beginning as an attending. But if you don't start thinking about investing and creating wealth for yourself when you retire, but also for your family, that you're gonna start a little bit later than anybody else, and that has to be a priority. for the women physicians out there, I think that needs to be very top of your list when you graduate from residency. Don't wait. I mean, it's important that you discuss that with your partner, but don't wait to have a partner, or don't wait to have those investments, because as we know, the more time passes, the less chances that you have of creating that equity.
And it's huge. And the compounding effect that time has on investment is massive. And though it may be like, oh, it's just 1 year, right, Paula? This first year is just 1 year. But just think about what that 1 year is when it's on the other side of the spectrum, when it's 20 years later, when it's year 21 instead of year one. Mm-hmm. I say this a lot. It's the best time to invest or buy real estate is 20 years ago and this year and right now. So just think about that. It's always a perspective thing of putting that. Just imagine this first year, even if it's a little, just getting started is really important, because that is going to be amplified by so many different factors when it's year 21, year 31, year 51, whatever it may be. It's got to start somewhere. Where did you, go ahead.
No, there's also an advantage. In many states and many banks offer a doctoral loan, which is the decreased, very small interest compared that if you didn't have it. And that goes away at year number 10 of graduating from residency. So if you want to buy a house and you want to invest, you want to do it within those 10 years and think about, like, it might be a hard investment. You might be tight for a little bit. But if you're renting during that time, you're wasting time and you're wasting money. That money is not going to anywhere. Whether if you're like doing it, like paying your mortgage, you're investing in your future, and your family's future.
Yeah, definitely some different perspectives around the rent versus buy scenario and where that money goes, paying down a principal as opposed to maintaining responsibility, liability for the place. But a lot of times physicians are up and moving around. So sometimes physicians don't even have, I'm not a physician. I've only heard from others, but the bouncing around piece, I'm here for a year, I'm here for 2 years, and then I got to get up and move. But it's always about the way you see an opportunity, whether it's something that you can be an investment or not. Tell us a little bit about when you started learning about investing, paired in with, your medical debt your educational debt that you had built. And how that worked out for you. When did you start and how did you attack your debt?
So I am extremely lucky because I didn't have that debt, right? But I know I had classmates in residency that have like ridiculous amount of debt, like $100,000 debt. I didn't have that, and that's a good thing. But I think that opportunities to residency, moonlighting, and actually living with the minimal so you can start paying that debt fast. And then as soon as you can get a house, I know sometimes you're like 2 years here, 3 years here, but once you have your real job, your first real job after residency, that will be the perfect time for you to start investing in owning something. Even if afterwards you are going to have to sell it if you have to move, but that amount of time is critical. I think that from year number 1, when you graduate from residency, to your number 10, that time is critical.
Yeah. And it's, again, starting to build that foundation. But there's also a challenge too of information overload on what to invest in. But what I'm hearing you say, Paula, is just making something as simple as your own house, your investment. What other kinds of investing opportunities have you seen so far, and what of those interest you?
Well, so as soon as I had a little bit more capital and we're already paying for the mortgage, I got with a specialist that sat down with me and told me, like, this is your portfolio, this is high risk, this is medium risk, this is low risk, and you go how comfortable you are. By a rule of thumb, the younger you are, the more risk you can take. But if you don't start if you don't start putting your money in somewhere that is increasing your interest, at least to overcome inflation, you're going to find yourself as a middle-aged person with nothing built, right, for yourself when you're going to retire, and for your children, it is going to be harder to grow that generational wealth.
Yeah. Trying to find that way to separate your time from your money, making your money work from you. And that will never happen unless you start. So sounds like to me, in your approach, working with a financial consultant, a financial advisor kind of scenario, setting up this package of assessing your risk and your goals that allowed you to probably work with the different types of employer benefit type packages that the match, but then also put in on top of that. Outside of the financial advisor money market world, do you have any other investments?
I do. I think that this is also important, and I don't want to make this all about gender, but I think it is this part is important about gender. From female physicians, when you're negotiating your contract, you in some occasions female physicians get paid less than male physicians. And you might think it's nothing because it's like, what, $10,000, $20,000. But over the years, in 10 years, there's going to be a lot of money. So I think from starting to know your worth, investing smaller things that are going to give you a larger gain. Invest in having a financial advisor. Invest in having a lawyer looking at your contract so you're actually getting paid a fair market value. Invest in taking the time to set aside money and think about the trajectory of your life, right? Instead of we get too caught in the 80-hour work week and going into the hamster wheel. You have to actually pause and take the time to think about how do you want your future to look like.
So making sure that you're getting paid not only the market value but what you're worth. I think that's remarkable. Yeah, remarkable advice. So just pairing onto that, as a female in the world of medicine and all these different types of alternatives, what are some that you've maybe had the opportunity to look at but haven't had the time or the maybe the drive or the desire to look into? What are some alternative types of investing that you've seen?
So I never got into Bitcoin, for example. It's like too new, too risky for me. Maybe some people are amazing at it and know how to figure out. I never did. And my investments are generally medium or low risk, just because that's the risk that I can tolerate, right? I'm also coming from another country. So for me, that doesn't exist in Latin America. In Latin America, people put the money in the bank or under your pillow, right? So I think for me, that was an adjustment. But I definitely have seen the benefits, and I think that not that I will continue to learn about it. I think in terms of real estate, I invested really early and paid really quickly my first house. Now we have 2 houses, which we're not planning to sell, right? But I think and then it is true, you have to invest in making the house better, and there's some things that get broken, and then the joys of house ownership. But then that's something that actually you can either sell that is yours, or you can leave to your family when put in a trust for your children. Those are things that you can strategize rather than just basically living the day to day.
How about multifamily investing? What are your feelings around that?
I would like to learn more about it.
Like to learn more. And how about the old single family? If you've got a couple houses, would you ever consider renting one of those out and on a long-term scenario?
So I have friends, I wouldn't, but I have a friend that has a second home and she rents it. I have another friend that has 2 apartments and now she has as Airbnbs. The person that is having the Airbnbs actually is getting more return for their money. Number one, location, right? But I think that's those are things to think about. You're right, to either rent the house or put it in for an Airbnb, knowing and understanding the risk. But again, having something that is yours rather than, in my opinion, rather than renting something is probably a better long-term investment.
Yeah. What do you think some of maybe the top challenge that you have to maybe take a step further into the real estate world? Now, I'm asking these questions just to pull some information out of you. I'm not pushing you into the real estate world. Just kind of want to pick your brain. What are some things that are holding you back from learning more, from taking action?
I think for all physicians in general, but specifically for surgeons, is time, right? So because your day starts, like most people, they start at 9 a.m. and finishes at 5. Our day starts at 6:30 and finishes whenever. And we work nights and we work weekends. So number one is time. Number two is, I think we're a little bit risk adverse, and I think that's every human. But when
physicians across the board for the most part too.
Yeah, so when I describe, like, if you have individuals that have had ridiculous debts where you have to pay $100,000 debt, you're less willing to go in debt again because it's risk aversion, right? So those are things, and to learn more about it, time constraints, trust issues, and just maintaining information.
Yeah, I think there's probably
open your mind to different types of investments.
There's probably some listeners out there who are wishing they only had 100,000 in educational debt. That number goes way up higher than that. So,
double or triple, and that is correct. And that takes a while and takes discipline. And so those are things that prevent people from investing further.
Yeah. So time, a big piece there, and what may be limiting your ability to open your mind, but opening your mind is a decision that has to be made from the get-go. That's a big piece, whether it is in real estate or oil and gas or conservatories or something along the lines of an alternative investment. Trust is a huge piece, and there's so many people out there, throwing around pro formas and projections and returns, and so it's hard to know who to trust. Those are big pieces that would kind of limit a lot of us from taking those steps. But those are huge pieces, and whatever I can do to help you and the listeners open up your mind, because there's so much out there. Imagine if you had those limitations that kept you from going into medicine or into surgery, and you didn't get to do that. Yeah. That would be heart-wrenching.
I think what you're doing actually is already great, right? I think that using platforms like social media to inform people, that's something that is great, that it really truly did not exist 10 years ago or 20 years ago for me, right? Yep. So that actually is really, really helpful.
Yeah, I learned to play the guitar, and I always tell everybody it was before the YouTube days, right? It was like right when the online came on. You can print out these tablature from the internet, nothing like what YouTube is now. We've got a hard stop because you are a very, very, very busy person, Paula. If you could go back 15 years ago, not that I want to change your path, but if you could go back and tell somebody then what you know now to help them get to where you would want to be now, what would that be?
It would be like, do not think of your investments as a today thing. Things in your investments in like what's going to happen to you in 10 years and in 20 years and in 30 years. And you start thinking about retirement as well, because even though we're young, when you start thinking about it, sometimes it's too late and you don't have anything to fall back into.
Beautiful. Well, Paula, thank you so much for your time. It's amazing. And thank you again for what you do in the trauma world and the surgeon world. My greatest gratitude to you and for your family too, because you give so much to do what you do. So thank you. Thank you so much again to Paula, again for her time and sharing her experience with us. And today, what's keeping you from taking that step or making that first acquisition? We all know that time is a challenge when it comes to investing, whether it's in real estate or anything else. Time is definitely a challenge. But again, like what Paula said, it's more than time. It is our mindset. Sometimes that we don't even open up our mind to see what else is possible out there. And then even when we know what's possible or have an idea, there's this huge trust wall. So, wow, so many things to dive in today. And Paula, thank you again so much for your time here today. To the listeners out there today, whoo, what a conversation. It was quick in the world of trauma. Well, hey, that's the time that we had. And now we're looking at opening up our minds to build that trust and expand our associations. Thank you for spending your time and giving us your attention and trusting us. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD.